2 years have passed since the world said goodbye to Matthew Perry, but for Jennifer Aniston, it still feels like yesterday. The wound hasn't closed, the pain hasn't faded, and the absence hasn't become easier to carry. In a powerful and heartbreaking new interview with Elle, Jennifer opened up in a way she rarely does, not as an actress, not as a Hollywood icon, but as a woman grieving the loss of someone she loved like family. And according to her, the saddest part of losing Matthew Perry wasn't just the moment he died. It was the fact that Matthew spent his entire life chasing something he never fully found: true happiness. Jennifer didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't hide behind vague words. She said it plainly, openly, vulnerably. It makes me sad that he never really achieved that because he deserved it. To fans, it was a simple sentence. But to those who knew their history, their 30-year friendship, their time on Friends, their long struggles together behind the scenes, it was a statement carrying the weight of decades. Matthew Perry, remembered forever as Chandler Bing, passed away in October 2023 at the age of 54. The world was stunned. The cause of death, later ruled as the acute effects of ketamine with drowning as a contributing factor, sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. But for Jennifer Aniston, and for the rest of the Friends cast, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer, the news hit in a way that was both devastating and eerily familiar. Jennifer admitted something she had never said before. It was alarming and shocking, yet not shocking. For years, she and the cast lived with the fear that one day they would get that phone call, the one confirming that Matthew's long battle with addiction had taken him from them. "We always said, 'I hope I never get that phone call,'" Jennifer revealed. But they knew it was possible. They felt it lurking at the edges of every relapse, every recovery, every hopeful moment that seemed too fragile to last. Because Matthew Perry's struggle with addiction wasn't a secret. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't simple. Fans knew some of it, but those closest to him lived through all of it: the highs, the lows, the relapses, the tiny victories, the heartbreaking setbacks. Jennifer once described it as mourning Matthew while he was still alive. Those words weren't dramatic. They were real, raw, and brutally honest. Loving Matthew meant loving someone who was fighting a war every single day of his life. In an earlier interview with Vanity Fair, Jennifer revealed that the Friends cast was like a support group around him. They were his safe space, his intervention team, his emotional net. "We did everything we could when we could," she said, and they did. They pulled him aside gently. They confronted him firmly. They encouraged him, pressured him, protected him, and stood beside him whether he was struggling or succeeding. When Matthew later wrote his memoir, he said that Jennifer was the one who reached out the most, the friend who refused to give up on him even when he couldn't promise he wouldn't fall again. And he never forgot that moment on set when Jennifer approached him, tears in her eyes, and said quietly, "We know you're drinking." Matthew called it a terrifying wake-up call. It was the moment he realized people were noticing. His struggle wasn't invisible, and Jennifer's courage to say it softly, painfully, lovingly was the moment that made him confront the truth. Fans have held onto that moment for years because it showed the real dynamic behind the sitcom laughter. It wasn't always jokes and applause. Behind the scenes, there was fear, compassion, frustration, hope, and an unbreakable brother-sister bond between Jennifer and Matthew. And today, Jennifer admits that even after 2 years, she thinks about that. She thinks about the man who made the whole world laugh but struggled to love himself. She thinks about the friend who joked through his pain, hid behind sarcasm, and fought every day for normalcy. She thinks about the man who deserved joy but couldn't always hold on to it. But what makes Matthew's loss even more tragic, Jennifer says, is that in the months before his death, he was finally doing better. In her interview with Variety last year, she shared that Matthew had seemed healthy, calm, and genuinely happy. He had quit smoking. He was getting in shape. He was happy, that's all I know. I was literally texting with him that morning, she said. He was not in pain. He wasn't struggling. Those words broke the internet when she first said them. Fans couldn't believe it. After everything, after the addictions, the rehab stays, the relapses, the medical emergencies, the near-death moments, Matthew Perry was finally smiling again. He was working out, swimming, talking about new projects, reconnecting with friends, staying away from alcohol and pills. He sounded hopeful. He sounded peaceful. But life doesn't always follow the arc we expect. And that's what makes the story so heartbreaking. It wasn't a deliberate, self-destructive spiral. It was an accident during a moment when he was actually doing better. It was a tragedy wrapped inside another tragedy, the loss of a man who had finally found a bit of the happiness he'd been chasing all his life. To fans, Matthew Perry will always be Chandler Bing, the king of sarcasm, the awkward sweetheart, the guy who made jokes instead of confronting his emotions. But Jennifer and the cast saw something deeper. They saw the real Matthew, brilliant, thoughtful, generous, sensitive, and funny in a way that wasn't performative. A man who cared deeply, sometimes too deeply. A man whose heart was often heavier than his smile showed. She described him recently as a brilliant human being and an extraordinary talent loved deeply. And for Jennifer, those aren't empty words. She means every one of them. Even now, she says, "We miss him. He's missed." Not as a character, not as a celebrity, but as a friend who left too soon. 2 years after his passing, Matthew Perry's presence is still everywhere. Fans rewatch Friends not just for nostalgia, but to feel close to him again. Clips of Chandler's funniest moments still go viral monthly. His memoir continues to be read by millions who find inspiration in his honesty and vulnerability. And Jennifer's emotional interviews continue to bring comfort to fans who are grieving too. Because Matthew Perry didn't just leave behind a legacy of laughter. He left behind a legacy of honesty about addiction, recovery, relapse, pain, hope, and the courage to share the truth. His story changed people. His struggle helped others feel less alone. And his words, especially from his memoir, continue to echo. "I wanted to be famous so I could be loved, but it turns out you have to love yourself first." Jennifer knows that. She knows he tried. She knows he fought hard. And that's why his loss still hurts, because he deserved so much more than pain. Today, Jennifer Aniston carries that grief with grace. She speaks about him not with bitterness or regret, but with love, pride, and a heartbreaking tenderness. She sees him not as a man defined by addiction, but as a friend defined by heart, humor, and resilience. She sees the bright moments, the goofy jokes, the spark in his eyes when he felt good. She remembers the Matthew who lit up rooms, not the Matthew who struggled to stay afloat. And fans around the world feel that too. They still write tributes. They still cry over Friends episodes. They still say they wish Matthew knew how many people he helped. 2 years later, the world hasn't forgotten him. Jennifer hasn't forgotten him. And in every interview she gives, in every trembling sentence she speaks, there is one message she continues to share. Matthew Perry was loved, deeply, by everyone who crossed his path. His story doesn't end with his death. His legacy lives through laughter, through honesty, through those who continue to fight the same battles he fought, and through the memories held by the people who knew him best, especially Jennifer Aniston. 2 years later, the grief remains, but so does the love.